Few people throughout time could say they've survived 2 world wars. But one man not only survived World War I and World War II, but also the Boer War. His name is Adrian Carton De Wiart, and this soldier is anything but ordinary. In fact, he lived an astounding life, and his story is truly crazy. Born in Belgium and eventually becoming a British citizen, this man truly loved warfare. Earning the title the Unkillable Soldier, Adrian survived 4 decades in the military in one of the worst ever times. During the beginning of the 20th century, during that time he was shot a total of 11 times. He was shot in the face, skull, stomach, ankle, leg, hip, ear, groin, the eye, the hand, and the elbow. But the enemy just couldn't take him down, and he just couldn't stop fighting. The bullet to his left hand, sustained in Ypres on the Western Front during WW1, completely destroyed 3 of his fingers and left 2 hanging on by a shred of skin. When the doctor refused to remove the fingers, De Wiart is recorded as ripping them off himself with his right hand. A true lunatic! This crazy stunt eventually led to the whole arm being amputated, leaving him with one of his many trademarks, an empty sleeve. But before we get into the nitty-gritty details of his battles and wartime exploits, let's take things back to the beginning and look at how exactly Adrian Carton De Wiart became the battle-hardened war veteran that we're speaking about today. He was born on the 5th of May 1880 in Brussels. His Belgian father was Leon Constant Ghislaine Carton De Wiart, a well-known and connected lawyer. His mother, Ernestine Wenzig, was Irish. At the time, there were rumors that he was an illegitimate son of King Leopold II of the Belgians. He grew up in an upper-class family and was sent to boarding school in England, where he'd later study law at Oxford. Apart from maybe being the bastard son of a king, he lived a pretty normal life for those days. But that all changed in 1899. Carton De Wiart wasn't satisfied with only hearing and reading about war. He wanted to experience it for himself. He had one problem, though. He wasn't old enough to join the army and lacked his father's consent. But these were small obstacles for a man like him. Abandoning his studies, he took on a fake name. Trooper Carton, pretended to be 25 and left for South Africa to serve in the British Army while the Second Boer War was underway. He would thrive in South Africa, becoming a second lieutenant of the 4th Royal Irish Dragoon Regiment. He served for 3 years, but was eventually shot in the stomach and groin, forcing him to leave the battlefield and return to England. His father was furious and sent him back to Oxford, where he stayed for a while, but now having a taste for war, he was determined to somehow go back. He managed to get transferred to India in 1902 by the British Army. He never saw action in India, but he used this time to contemplate on his wounds and his future as a soldier. It was during this time he realized the necessity for physical fitness and a healthy body, and developed a fiery passion for exercise. He would quickly fly up the ranks of the British Army, and for the next 13 years, he would swear allegiance to King Edward VII, becoming a British subject, and would become a famous name throughout Britain. This was mainly due to his aristocratic background, battlefield accomplishments, and charismatic persona. He made important friends all over Europe and would become a man of high status. He didn't see much action during the time, instead trained, traveled, and did his military duties. He was promoted to captain in 1910. For most, that would have been an honorable career as a soldier. He became an officer, was semi-famous across Europe, had a wife and a lot of money. But World War I was about to break out, and Adrian Carton De Wiart would become a prominent figure, and also have many more near misses with death. 1914 saw the start of the First World War. Adrian's first stop was Somaliland to take out a dervish leader causing chaos in the area. Mohammed bin Abdullah was his name, and he'd come to be known as Mad Mullah. Adrian joined up with the Somaliland Camel Corps to fight the forces of the Dervish movement. During an attack on an enemy fort at Shimba Beres, he was shot in the arm and in the face, losing his left eye and part of an ear. He received the Distinguished Service Order for his exploits. He returned to England to recover and was given a glass eye. It caused him such discomfort that he allegedly threw it away and instead acquired a black eye patch, the first of his many trademark war wounds. He still had his left arm at this point, but that was about to change. The war in Europe was underway, so he returned home to fight. Although a British citizen, his home country of Belgium was under attack, so he headed to Ypres to help fend off the enemy. During a German artillery barrage, Carton De Wiart's left hand was shattered. According to his autobiography, he tore off 2 fingers when the doctor refused to amputate them. Later that year, his hand was completely amputated by a surgeon. Now he was a one-eyed, one-armed, but still very deadly and determined soldier. His exploits during World War I never ended there, although for most that would have been it. In fact, things only got crazier. By 1916, he was back in action, leading the 8th Battalion Gloucestershire Regiment in the Battle of the Somme. With one hand, one eye, and unwavering determination, he led his men into the fray, earning the prestigious Victoria Cross, the UK's highest military decoration awarded for valour in the face of the enemy. Those of his men who survived recounted stories of Carton De Wiart pulling the pins of grenades out with his teeth and hurling them with his one good arm. But he received another serious injury at Devil's Wood during the Battle of the Somme when he was shot through the back of the head. But fortunately, it missed his spinal cord. He hadn't finished escaping death. During the remainder of the First World War, he was shot through the hip at the Battle of Passchendaele, through the leg at Cambrai, and through the ear at Arras. World War I ended, and Carton De Wiart not only earned the highest honour in the British Army, but also the Belgian Army, and gained respect and admiration of everyone. Right before the war ended, he'd be given the temporary rank of Brigadier General too to top things off. He was 36 and barely alive with all the wounds he suffered, but he would somehow make a recovery. After World War I, Carton decided to partake in a very interesting mission. You could call it a side quest. After the war, there was still problems in Poland, so Carton was sent over to command the British troops stationed there. Poland desperately needed support, as it was engaged with Bolshevik Russia in the Polish-Soviet War, the Ukrainians in the Polish-Ukrainian War, the Lithuanians in the Polish-Lithuanian War, and the Czechs in the Czech-Polish border conflicts. His mission was to make peace between Poland and Ukraine, which didn't go to plan. However, Carton De Wiart gained a respect and admiration for Poland, or maybe he just wanted a chance at another war, so he traveled to Paris to try and persuade British Prime Minister Lloyd George to send aid. The British sent no aid, but that didn't stop him. He fought on the front lines anyway, having many more action-packed battles. He became close to Polish nobles, and they sought his advice and maritime expertise in many situations that would arise. He would survive an aircraft crash and was a brief prisoner of Lithuania before returning to Britain in 1920 to report about the Poland situation. Here, he was appointed advisor to the king and persuaded the British to send some aid to Poland. He was active in Warsaw in 1920 when the Russian Red Army was at the gates. While out on his observation train, he was attacked by a group of Red Cavalry and fought them off with his revolver from his train, at one point falling on the track and reboarding quickly. This was all before World War II even began. The Poles would win their struggle, and Carton would officially retire from the army in the 19th of December, 1923, with the honorary rank of Major General. Just a quick recap, by then he had fought in countless battles, received the highest military medals from 2 countries, was honored and respected by not only Britain and Belgium, but now Poland too. Had advised and served under the highest-ranking officials in all of those countries and even been advisor to the British King. All while doing most of it with 1 arm and 1 eye and numerous other wounds. The Polish were so grateful for his help that they offered him the use of a large estate called Prostyn in the Pripyat Marshes, a wetland area larger than Ireland and surrounded by water and forests. In this location, Carton De Wiart spent the rest of the interwar years. In his memoirs, he said, "In my 15 years in the marshes, I did not waste 1 day without hunting." Resting and relaxing in Poland for 15 years, his retirement would be rudely interrupted by the looming threat of the Nazis and World War II. Now nearing his 60s, he was called to aid the British military mission in Poland. Russia and Germany would attack Poland, and that was the end of this home there. Adrian was appointed to do his best to help the war effort in Poland. Now an old man, he'd do more than just give advice. He was not impressed with the Polish leadership and argued with them about what strategic action to take. As Polish resistance weakened, Carton De Wiart evacuated the British mission from Warsaw along with the Polish government, with both the Germans and the Soviets in pursuit. His car convoy was attacked by the Luftwaffe on the road, and the wife of one of his aides was killed, and he was in danger of arrest in Romania and only got out by aircraft on the 21st of September with a false passport, just in time as the pro-Allied Romanian Prime Minister, Armand Călinescu, was assassinated that very day. He was now well and truly back in action, and his next stop was Norway. He was given his old rank back and would serve there in an attempt to halt the German onslaught. After his troops enduring shelling and constant attack by German artillery as well as ski troops, with the German Navy landing even more troops to the rear. He somehow survived all that, and when defeat was all but certain, the decision to evacuate was made. However, on the date set to evacuate the troops, the ships did not appear. The next night, a naval force finally arrived, led through the fog by Lord Louis Mountbatten. The transports successfully evacuated the entire force amid heavy bombardment by the Germans, resulting in the sinking of 2 destroyers, the French Bison and British HMS Afridi. Carton De Wiart arrived back at the British naval base of Scapa Flow in the Orkney Islands on the 5th of May, 1940, his 60th birthday. I guess surviving a near-miss evacuation from the Nazis isn't the worst birthday present. After the evacuation from Norway, he was positioned in Northern Ireland with a defense force. He was told he was now too old for active duty. Although too old for active duty, fate would have other plans. By 1941, Hitler was preparing an invasion of Yugoslavia, and the Yugoslavs asked for British assistance. So Adrian Carton De Wiart was sent, only to negotiate though, but things would not go to plan. After refueling in Malta, the aircraft left for Cairo with enemy territory to the north and south. Both engines failed off the coast of Italian-controlled Libya, and the plane crash-landed in the sea, about a mile from land. Carton De Wiart was knocked unconscious, but the cold water made him regain consciousness. When the plane broke up and sank, he and the rest aboard were forced to swim to shore. They were captured by the Italian authorities. It was a jackpot for Italy. They now had a very valuable prisoner of war. He wasn't done fighting yet, and the whole time he was there, he made numerous escape attempts, one time evading capture for 8 whole days. A true nuisance. The Italians, though, were secretly trying to find a way out of the war, so they released Adrian and sent him home with a message. After being a captive for 2 years, Another close brush with death, this guy really was unkillable. After arriving back briefly, he was almost immediately sent to China by Winston Churchill to be his personal representative to nationalist leader Chiang Kai-shek, a post he held until 1946. He'd travel around Southeast Asia and India and would take part in some naval and air battles between Britain and the Japanese. Remember, World War II was still going on at this point. He didn't engage in any more battles in Asia, but was known to despise communism, and once even interrupted Mao Zedong at dinner while he was giving a speech. It's said that Mao paused and then laughed. Adrian Carton De Wiart really had balls of steel. He wouldn't see any more active combat in China, but he slipped on coconut matting on some stairs, fell, broke several vertebrae, and knocked himself unconscious. That would mark his second and final retirement. In 1947, he again departed the military, this time as a lieutenant general. Although it feels like this guy would never be done with war, even the immortal soldier had to call it a day eventually. At the age of 66, he found peace and tranquility in the serene landscapes of Cork, Ireland. Despite his advanced age and numerous injuries, he remained active and continued to pursue various interests such as fishing. He would live out the rest of his life in Ireland, still keeping contact with his friends and acquaintances around the world that he'd met on his long and epic journey. He died at the age of 83 in 1963 and left behind one of history's most intriguing and fascinating tales. He really deserved the title of Unkillable Soldier.